Overlord Season 4 is everything I love and despise about the Overlord franchise as a whole. I absolutely love this series so much, but at the same time, I can't help but every now and then have deep underneath all that hype is this little sense of a little disappointed, but it's my thoughts on the fourth season of Overlord. Of course, I'm going to get into some slight spoilers here, so keep that in mind. I might do some more spoiler discussion later on, but I'll give forewarning beforehand. We're 4 seasons into it, so it's a little bit difficult to really talk about anything without spoiling things, so let's jump into it. Overlord Season 4, to give a brief idea to those that are completely unfamiliar with this series and want to know what it's about, essentially a guy that plays an MMO. At some point, that MMO is going to shut down. Well, he decides to stay online to the point the servers go down, but then he finds that it didn't kick him off. He's stuck in this world. He's been transported into this world and into the body of this great, huge skeletal lich that he basically played as. He, along with all of his friends, had this huge tome, this tome of Nazarick that they had all built, tons of NPC guards inside of it and everything that they all had fun with. Him and his guild were essentially creating the bad guys of this world. Well, fast forward to Season 4, we're now to the point where Ainz, as his character, is now wanting to basically take over the entire world. He establishes early on this season that he is going to essentially take over the entire world, conquer it all, so that he can create this big, massive kingdom, so that if he does end up having if his friends do end up coming back to the game, or if he does find his friends, they're going to kind of see his achievements. He also sorts want to create a place where everybody can feel welcome. Like, he wants to get rid of the discrimination that's in the world. Obviously, everybody sees Ainz as this evil entity that needs to be destroyed. It's almost like he wants to change that. So again, he wants to conquer all of these kingdoms and take control of them all. But at the same time, on the side, he's trying to get the Adventure Guild and recruit other adventurers in this world not to be his enemy. He wants to recruit and support them so they can go out and find the treasures and find mysteries of this world. Essentially trying to seek out the things that he's never seen in this world. Well, very quickly, somebody tries to double-cross Ainz, so he decides to destroy an entire kingdom. And that's really where we're starting to get into my discomfort of this series. Now, my thoughts. I've always loved the Overlord franchise. I love it for what it's going for. It's going for the bad guy. Early on, my big draw to the series was, yes, it's an isekai, but this is an isekai from a perspective of somebody that has been placed into the body, and he sort of starts becoming his character. He's becoming this heartless skeleton, so to speak. So he's losing a lot of his sense of human emotions. And whenever it does seem like he starts to get a little bit excited or whatever, he always has this spell or something go off that kind of draws him back into his original form. The way that he's seen certain tragedies happening around him, he acknowledges that he's not really feeling the way that he should be about them. And again, that was the thing that grabbed me. But additionally, an amazing cast of characters. Like, every single person of Nazarick was amazing. I love all these NPCs that surround him. So many yandere characters, and Albedo, who's super thirsty for him. Shaltira, that's thirsty for him too, but is willing to do pretty much anything, and is a little quirky in that regard. Super violent. Cocutus, this big, huge, frozen bug thing. Demiurge, who's kind of a mastermind on the side, is just every single one of these characters great. And even the side characters that they introduced from the outside were fantastic as well. When Sabas brings in Suware, getting into Suware herself, and yes, technically having the princess and Climb and Brain, all these other side characters who seem like they could possibly fight against Ainz, but they really can't. Which sort of gets into my frustration that I've kind of had for the series. And we've done this several times before, where you have this long introduction of these side characters, you get really deep into what they're thinking about, you're getting into their lives, their struggles, and yes, their fears of Ainz himself. And you spend so much time looking at these characters, only to have them just get knocked out in one shot. Like, that has always kind of been a little bit of a letdown for the series. Now, I understand why they get knocked out so quickly, but it still doesn't shake the fact that we spend so much time watching these people just to have them they're gone. Okay, so what was the point in that? I had the same feeling when we got into the lizard people in a previous season. We had this whole situation where we're getting into the lizard people, their clans, they're fighting between each other, just to have Ainz come in and just splatter them. Now, granted, that was for a purpose. We eventually get into the whole idea of him bringing them back and trying to essentially have them serve under him. But this is sort of a different story. We're getting a different sense with the whole situation with the people at this kingdom. And yes, getting a little more into heavier spoiler ending season spoilers here. Specifically getting into the princess and what she ends up doing within the kingdom. Again, we're spending all this time building up all these characters like Brain and all these other ones, and then suddenly the entire kingdom is just wiped off the map. It feels wrong. It feels depressing. But at the same time, I kind of understand what Ainz is doing. And I understand what the writer is doing with Ainz. He's making him into the bad guy. A bad guy that eventually may change the entire landscape itself to being more positive. He's on a conquest that's very brutal, and it's a conquest that could eventually lead to world peace. But it's a conquest that is paved with blood. And it's unsettling because of that. You kind of just want everybody to get the hell out of the way. Whenever Ainz is going somewhere, get out of there. And it's funny that I still, even despite the fact of how unsettling it is to watch these people get destroyed, still enjoy watching that process. Watching Cocytus walk all the way to a separate street just to not pass a fallen soldier, somebody that we've been following for a long time. He walks around him just to not, basically to honor what he was doing. He was trying to keep anybody from passing him. And so Cocytus basically honors that. These are the moments that are really fantastic. And yes, technically seeing the twins come in and I'm just like, yes, it's the twins. I gotta do something crazy. I still love it. But it still doesn't shake the fact of how unsettling it is. Yes, at the core of why Ainz wants to level an entire kingdom is because he wants to make others fear ever double-crossing him. To set an example, it still sucks. Like, in the end, I still kind of started liking the prince. And yet he still can't be allowed to live. I am sort of getting ahead of myself in talking about all this stuff. I do want to say the dragon stuff was... like, the whole dwarf stuff with the kobolds and the dragons, I'm sure there's a huge significant reason for this. Obviously, he wanted the dwarves for his blade, but that whole scenario, I almost wish that they would kind of just said that something happened on the sideline, because just them going in there, fighting CGI kobolds, eventually going to the dragons, and how very simple that whole scene was, it didn't feel very fulfilling. I think most of my enjoyment really came from the beginning section and everything around the kingdom itself, and really getting into, yes, the princess. Let's be honest, it's the princess. The princess was a huge part of this entire season. It was a little bit surprising seeing a lot of people kind of shocked about Reiner, and I was like, that's her. Yeah. We established very early on that she doesn't care about anything but climb. Like, climb is all that she cares about. She will basically sell out an entire kingdom just to be with Climb. And that definitely had quite a payoff at the end. I'm really interested to see what they do with her going forward. I guess the last thing that this season really did start diving into was obviously this one dragon. I don't remember the name of the dragon. This dragon that is now essentially prodding at Ainz. He seems to be somehow connected to the players of the past as well. It was very vague, but it seemed to indicate that they knew the players themselves, knew that they were going to be fighting against the players, but at the same time doesn't indicate that he knows of the existence of, or he's working with a player. He's working by himself and prodding at Ainz. Now, he was using a proxy. I don't know exactly how powerful the dragon is. At this point, I don't really trust that anybody's powerful enough to stand up against Ainz, so I'm not going to give any weight to that. But it does at least add another interesting element. Obviously, the other thing that we've been sort of hinting at for a long time now, ever since, I think this is the first season we had the first encounter with Shalltear being controlled by something that was an item that a player would have. So it's always sort of indicated that there is possibly another player in this world, or at the least NPCs, people of this world are using player items. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see what comes of that. I don't know how long it's going to be until we get another season of this series. I do hope that we get another season, but as always, I still absolutely love the characters. We had a lot of fantastic character moments, especially with, yes, Albedo going around and doing little puppetry in the background, Shalltear finally getting some recognition, some time on the battlefield to try to prove herself to Momonga. I've always loved Shalltear to death. Even got a little bit into Evil Eye and her party, which didn't, again, really amount to much, besides them really just absorbing what's happening, spending some time with the princess, and then ditching. But again, we'll see where it goes from here. Hopefully it doesn't take as long as last time to get another season. I think it was like 4 years since the last season, so hopefully we get an announcement for another season quickly. But until then, that's my thoughts on Season 4 of Overlord. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of this whole season. Do you get the same frustration I do, or does it not bother you? I'm technically on the same page as most people. I just enjoy watching Momonga be super overpowered. But I thank you guys for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.